Hi guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today we will be doing my top 5 worst books of 2021. And for the most part, I actually had a pretty good reading year. I pretty much enjoyed a majority of what I picked up over the year. I mean, I did have a few misses throughout the year. I did DNF a few books over the year. I did already film and post a books I DNF'd over 2021, and so I will have that video linked in my description bar if you are interested. And actually one of those books that I have in that video will make an appearance in my list here, so stay tuned for that. So I was able to rank these books here that I'm going to talk about. So we will start at the bottom, so that would be the least worst of the worst, and we'll work our way up to the top, which would be the worst of the worst. So we will go ahead and get started. So coming in at number 5 at the least worst of the worst, and that will be These Violent Delights by Micah Nemerever. And so this was supposed to be a adult fiction, romance, LGBTQ novel. And so this follows our two main characters who are college students by the name of Paul and Julian. And Paul is this really shy to himself character, and he recently lost his father. And then we have Julian, who is this outgoing, outspoken, comes from this rich family, and they end up meeting in college. And so they start to build this friendship, and over the course of the book, their friendship grows really strong, and they start to meet each other's families. So Julian is starting to hang around Paul and his family a lot. And then Julian at first is kind of hesitant to bring Paul around his family, but Paul ends up meeting Julian's mother and father. We kind of get to see both of Paul and Julian's background and where each of these characters come from. And the story moves really, really slowly, and it kind of leads up into this murder that takes place that both of these characters are involved in. And we also get to see how their friendship turns romantic and how it turns into a very toxic romantic relationship. It sounds interesting, but the story moves extremely slow, and the story is extremely boring. I have never been so bored with a story in my life. And when I first picked up the book, I had tried to read it physically. And the story kind of starts off where you get what happens at the end of the book. They bring it up in the first chapter. So you get the ending at the beginning, and then after that it kind of starts, then you get the first chapter, if that makes sense. So they kind of try to make it exciting, but it was boring. Oh my god, I've just never been so bored with a story in my life. And so even the audiobook, the person that narrates it is so boring. And this book is it's over 400 pages, and I don't think that it needs to be that long. There were certain parts of the story that were a little bit interesting when we got to see their relationship start to grow, especially when their relationship kind of turns from friendship to romantic, and then when their relationship starts to grow toxic. But the story was too long. I just can't get over how freaking boring this story was. And it also kind of read one of those really old school Lifetime movies. If you know what I'm trying to say, if you used to watch them old grainy Lifetime movies, then you know. I would have rather seen this as a movie than tried to read it. It was boring. I would not have recommended this to anybody. I definitely would not have recommended this on audiobook to anybody, because it was one of those audiobooks that while I was while I was listening to it, my mind would wander to 22 other things that I would be thinking about throughout the day. I just could not focus on anything that was happening, and I would have to keep rewinding it to go back because I just could not focus. I just never was like so bored in my life. It was terrible. And the ratings for this, like, people like it. And I don't understand why, because it was terrible. I did not like it. I did do a review of this on my channel, and I compared this book to These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong because they have the same title. So I decided to read both of these books at the same time and compare them, and obviously I like the other book better. So if you would like to check out that video, I will have that video linked down below as well. But I did not like this book. I thought it was boring. I think it almost put me in a reading slump because it was just terrible. I could kind of get the message that the author was trying to portray. It was somewhere in there, but it was terrible. It was boring. So that was number 5. So then number 4 on my list would have to be The Taking of Jake Livingston by Ryan Douglas. And this one actually hurt to put on this list because I was really anticipating this one over the summer. This one sounded like something that I was really going to enjoy, but I did not like this one at all. I had several problems with this book. And so this one is a young adult, like, mystery horror thriller novel. So this story is about our main character, Jake, who is a Black student at this prep academy. And Jake is the only Black student in his 11th grade class. And so we find out very early on that Jake can see ghosts, and he is being haunted by this ghost by the name of Sawyer. And we find out that Sawyer is actually a former school shooter, and Jake has to figure out why Sawyer is deciding to haunt him. And then Jake has to figure out not only why Sawyer is haunting him, why Sawyer is starting to kill other students or kids, and why Sawyer has decided to make those other kids targets. So that is essentially what the story is about. And my biggest problem with this story, well, I have a lot of problems with this story. First off, nothing really is explained at all in this story. We don't know why Jake even has the ability to see ghosts. We just know that he can. We know that nobody else in his family can see ghosts or has the ability to see ghosts. But for some reason, Jake can. But we never know why. We never got a story of why Sawyer is after Jake, or why he has been targeting Jake, or why he is specifically haunting Jake. We never got any explanation on that. Mind you, the book is only like 250-ish pages, so none of that was ever explained. There are so many trigger warnings in this like 250-page book. It's ridiculous. There is trigger warnings for suicide, school shootings, bullying, attempted rape, parental abuse, racism, homophobia, and probably a list of other things that I have already forgotten. There is so much that this author has tried to throw into this short book, and a lot of it is without any explanation. He tried to throw so much commentary into the book, but didn't like know how to tie it together. And I don't like that. Like, if you're gonna throw stuff like that in there, you're gonna have to be able to explain it. I didn't like it at all. Another weird thing is that this was a dual perspective book. So we got Jake's perspective in this story, which obviously that made sense. The book is called The Taking of Jake Livingston. But we also got the perspective of Sawyer, who's the school shooter. And at times and in Sawyer's perspective, we were seeing how he was raised. We were seeing all the things that he went through and in his home life. And it kind of seemed like the author was trying to make us sympathize with Sawyer. And I was a little confused because we have this character that committed this horrible crime, and I don't know if this author wanted me to feel sorry for this character. And at times I almost did, and I felt conflicted within my own self. And I didn't like that either. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm supposed to be feeling sorry for this person. So I don't know what the author's intentions were with this story. And also this book did that thing where I feel like every single book, every single horror book, every horror book that has Black characters is trying to do, and that is compare themselves to Get Out. I'm over the Get Out comparison right now. And this book, that was the thing. Oh, it's compared to Get Out. I didn't see a Get Out comparison to this, besides this kid was like one of the few Black kids in the school, and there was racism in the school, and I don't see how that compares to Get Out, okay? I wish all of these books would stop using the Get Out comparison. We need something else. We need to talk about something else. Like, we need another comparison, because the Get Out is getting old. I'm over it at this point. Anytime somebody says that it's compared to Get Out, I think I'm gonna pick up another book because we're overdoing it with the Get Out. And I think people are trying to use that as a way to sell their stuff. And the only thing it's gonna make me do is not buy it, because it's not a good comparison at all anymore. Especially when you're not even tying it to Get Out at all. So no. There were like a couple of good things about this story. I mean, it did touch on like friendships and like accepting like yourself and accepting your sexuality, but they were like little small nuggets in this book. But other than that, like, if you didn't really know what you were getting yourself into when you picked this book up, I don't think you're gonna like it. I didn't know that this book was gonna be doing all of that. I didn't know that we were gonna be dealing. I think it, like, I don't have the book physically, but I think it said something about a school shooting on the cover, but I didn't realize like how much we were going to go into that. I didn't realize like how many trigger warnings this author was going to touch on. And the fact that you do all that, but then you don't tie it to anything. You just throw it at us. And it just did too much in a short amount of time with no explanation. And then the whole, he can see ghosts, but then you don't explain all these terms when he's like trying to fight the ghost. And like he's like having these like little battle scenes with the ghosts, and like the ectoplasm and all this stuff is happening. I'm like, what is going on? I didn't like it. Again, this was like one of those things. I think I tried to listen to this one on audio and I didn't understand what was going on. I had to switch from audio to the physical because I had to actually read it with my eyeballs to figure out what was going on, because I wasn't picking up what was being put. I didn't like it. This is again one of those ones I couldn't recommend it to anybody. Yeah, this one just wasn't good to me. And I hate it because I was really looking forward to this one. It looked good. The cover looked nice. But I just wasn't feeling this one. So, yep. Sorry. This was number 4. So this next book is the one that I said actually showed up in my books that I DNF'd in 2021. And a lot of people like this book. This book has been really popular here on BookTube, on Instagram, on Book Talk, everywhere. And like I said, I DNF'd it. I didn't understand. And that is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. I almost forgot who wrote it. And I just could not get into this. I just didn't like it. Okay. So this book is supposed to be about this world that is our world, I believe, and it has magic. 6 kids are supposed to be selected to guard the Library of Alexandria, and so they're supposed to go through like training for a year to see who moves on to the next round, I think, and only 5 will move on. And so we are supposed to follow them for their year. and I was bored to freaking death. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. There was nothing interesting about any of these characters. So we're supposed to be following Libby, Nico, Raina, Parisa, Callum, and Tristan. And nobody was interesting to me. Nobody. And like I said, nothing happened throughout this story. They talked about their powers a little bit. There was a scene I believe I DNF'd this at like 60-ish%. And we had a scene towards the beginning when they first got to the place that they were staying, where they were all staying. And we got like this action scene where they all kind of put like their magic to use. And that was it. Other than that, nothing happened. It was a lot of just them conversating with each other, them trying to figure out how they were going to like form their little cliques and see who was going to be clicked off with who. And one of the little girls was trying to figure out who she was going to have sex with most of the time. There was a lot of that happening. And like nothing freaking happened. Nothing was interesting in this. I didn't, like, every time I picked this up and read a little bit and put it down, I didn't want to pick it back up. I just kept wondering, like, when it was going to get good. And I kept seeing so many reviews talking about, oh my God, I love the characters. And I just loved all the people that were in here. And I'm just like, I don't see it. Like, they're not interesting to me at all. There are pictures in here, like this one with like the characters and stuff, and like, I mean, it sounds good, but it's just not good. I don't think the writing's all that great. I just didn't like it. I just thought it was like nothing happened. And maybe if I would have read maybe the 70%, maybe something else would have happened, and maybe I would have wanted to read more. But nothing happened in this book. I don't understand. And I like kept, like, every time I put the book down and I would not want to pick it back up, I would go to like Goodreads and like specifically try to read reviews of people who gave it like a 4 or 5 stars to try to figure out what the heck they are saying that they like about this book to make me want to pick it back up, because I just was not getting it. I don't understand what you guys see. I do know that this was like independently published, but now it's getting traditionally published. So like I said in that other video, like, I'm happy for the author. It's getting like a new cover and stuff. I'm happy that people like this. So, like, but I didn't. This was not good at all. Like, and I feel like I'm the only one that doesn't like this book. But it's just not good. I was just bored to death. It was just boring to me. And I don't like to be bored. And I think with the other 2 books that I'm going to be talking about, that was my problem, which is boredom. I just don't like to be bored. Something has to happen. Even if there's not like a lot of plot, something has to be interesting. The characters, something. This was just boring. So this was number 3. So this next book that I'm going to talk about, I also did another video. Well, these next 2, number 2 and number 1, I did a video on both of these. They're actually in the same video. So I'll talk about that when I get to number 1. But this one, people actually like this one. I didn't. Again, it's the same problem. It was freaking boring. Nothing happened. It was weird, but nothing happened. And the book that I'm talking about is Bunny by Mona Awad. So in Bunny, we are following our main character, Sam. So we are following our main character, Sam, and she is a graduate student. And she gets tangled up with these group of students that her and her friend Ava have named the Bunnies. As she's like entangled with these group of girls, she takes part in their weird experiments that they do. The story kind of revolves on the weird experiments that they do, and we kind of just follow her as she is kind of going along on their day-to-day dealings with these group of girls and their like head mistress person. And we also see how her friendship with her friends, her only friend Ava, like deteriorates. And that's basically what the story is. It's supposed to take place over the course of a year. And I mean, I hesitate to really say that this book is necessarily boring. Stuff is happening, but stuff isn't really explained well. And to me, it's just not all that interesting. And I didn't like it. It's weird. I listened to it on audio, which I would not recommend this on audio, because the group of girls, aka the bunnies, the person that narrates this, that the voices that they use for the bunnies is like really high pitched. And I'm sure they did that on purpose to make like their voices like really annoying. And they did the job well done, because it is annoying. But I pushed through and I listened to it on audio because it was just faster to get through it that way. But I just kind of felt like, I am going to say it was boring. It was boring to me because nothing was explained. I was confused most of the way on what the heck was going on. And I just didn't like it. It was really weird. And I think a lot of the people who probably really enjoy this book like it because it was weird and you really didn't know what was going on. It was kind of like a fever dream, because it was probably like a fever dream to our main character. So I just couldn't get with it on this one. In my books, I kind of like for things to be explained, something to be explained, something, give me something. And we didn't get anything. The only redeeming quality in this book was the ending, when it kind of had you question everything that was going on in this book. That was the only thing that kind of saved this a little bit for me. But other than that, I just didn't enjoy this. I was lost for a majority of this. I didn't like it. I didn't care for any of the characters. I didn't connect with like anything that was going on. I just didn't I just didn't like it. So be it. Yep. So number 2. And our last one, number 1, the top, the worst book that I read, that I suffered through in 2021, that I just could not stand, was Katherine House by Elisabeth Thomas. And this is kind of in the same vein as Bunny, where this follows our main character by the name of Inez, where she actually gets accepted into this elite school called Katherine House, where anybody who gets accepted, you're there for 3 years. You're cut off from everybody, your family, your friends. You're not allowed to bring anything with you, none of your own clothes, you're not your cell phone, none of your own music, no movies, nothing. Everything that you need will be provided by Katherine House. And so while you're there, they give you everything. You're just there to freaking study. That's it. And so basically we're just following Inez as she meets a new group of friends, as she gets swept up into this cult-like house. And while she's there, we kind of learn some things about this house that aren't quite right. I did mention it's kind of like cult-like. And we kind of learn that there were some sort of like experiments that actually took place at the house way back in the day, that looks like they're still kind of trying to do those same experiments on the low. So while she is going through her 3 years at this house, she is also trying to figure out if they are in fact still trying to do these experiments, and if they are actually doing those experiments on them. So it's kind of like us following her while she is still trying to figure out what is actually going on within this house. So this book for sure is boring. I listened to this on audio. It was 11 hours. It was the longest 11 hours in my life. That should have been like a day or 2 of listening to that on audio. It took me all of the 14 days. The entire time that I was allowed to check that out from my library, it took me every last bit of 14 days to listen to this on audio. boring. It actually started from year 1 to year 3. We followed this girl the entire time she was in school at this Katherine House. The entire time. We followed her as she got there, as she made friends, as she lost friends, as she went from breakfast, from lunch to dinner, as they went out partying, as she slept around, as she went to class, as she came back from class, as she went to class again, as she came back again. We followed her from morning, noon to night. It was so boring. The snippets that we got when she was trying to figure out like little things about like the experiments, they were kind of interesting. They weren't interesting enough to hold my attention. And this was one of those books that had an open ending. Both this one and Bunny had those open endings that I cannot stand. I cannot stand a book that has an open ending, especially when the book wasn't even good. Now, if it had an open ending and the book was good, I'm good with that. I'm great with that because that just makes me want more. But when a book is terrible and it has an open ending, you mean to tell me you're going to give me a bad book and you can't even give me a conclusion on how it freaking ends? Please. Please. This was not good. Not good at all. And people actually like this. People like this book. I don't know why. I don't get it. I don't know why people like this. For the life of me, I don't get it. I watched reviews of people who have good things to say just to see, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the issue. But it's not, because I don't agree with anything the other people that enjoyed this had to say. Like, there are like little bits of like commentary that are like thrown in here, which I mean, I get, but it's still boring. I still didn't like it. I still didn't enjoy it. Like, I just didn't like it. So, like I said, I do have a video for both Katherine House and Bunny because these are both so similar. They both have to do with our main characters that are in they're both in college and they're both dealing with like some sort of cult. One is like a cult in school, and one's dealing with like a group. I do have a video trying to figure out which of these books is better, so I will link that video down below. But yeah, this book definitely tops my worst books of 2021. This book actually did put me in a reading slump in the month of November. It was hard for me to pick anything else up after this one, so I suffered a little bit, and I don't think that I could actually recommend this. I don't know to who I would recommend it to. I mean, if you want to give it a try, sure. I wouldn't tell you to. But if you're interested, go ahead. If you do like this book, if you like any of these books, please tell me. Please tell me in my description bar what it is about any of these books that I have talked about, what it is that made you like them. Because I'm genuinely curious on what it is, because maybe it is something that I missed. If you are like me and you didn't like these books, I would like to know that as well, because obviously we are on the same page. But that is all that I have for you guys today. So I will see you guys next time. Bye.